I'm liking what I see.
The crown wheel escapement is one of the first mechanical escapement mechanisms. An escapement is what regulates the time in a mechanical clock, like in a grandfather clock. But instead of using this to make a clock, I'm planning to repurpose it to gradually spin a rotisserie chicken over a campfire. It is thought to have first appeared in either England, Germany, or Italy, somewhere in Western Europe, in the late 13th century, and is the first evidence of a mechanical clock. Before this, water was used to mark the passage of time. It's called a crown wheel escapement because, well, the wheel looks like a crown. Those little white tabs that interact with the protruding teeth on the crown are called pallets. And the vertical pipe they're attached to is called a verge. As those pallets interact with the teeth, they cause that vertical pole to oscillate back and forth. You can see it best by looking at the top where I've placed another pipe to regulate the speed. Today, I'm going to show you how to make this. Lord willing, of course.
I went to the store and bought this 8-foot long piece of aluminum. It's 2 inches wide, and this is what I'm going to use to make the crown. And the idea is to bend it into a circle. So what we have here is a router with a bit that's just poking out just a little bit, because I'm going to do this in a series of steps. I marked the center, and there's a little hole here. I got this to 7.5 inches because the circle needs to have a diameter of about 15 inches, 15.24 technically, but I'm going with 15. And I'm gonna just put a nail in there, slip this on there, and then just make a circle. It's stained purple because of that pipe cement I was using to make the raft. Now I'll just place that on there, and look at that. And it looks like about 15 inches, exactly. So that worked out well. You really just have to take your time with it. So I took some poster board and made a template because I want to make sure it fits properly before I cut the metal. It's actually 47.5 inches in circumference, and we need an odd number of teeth. And you can see why it's called a crown escapement, because it kind of looks like a crown. This poster board is 2 inches wide, just like the metal. It's kind of about the size of this measuring stick here. So there are 17 peaks or crowns, and in between each one is 2 inches, 2 3/4 inches. This is the 1 inch mark. So I just drew a line and cut it from the peak to the 1 inch mark where the next peak begins. So now what I've done is I've just taped this template onto the piece of aluminum that I'm going to cut, so it won't shift around. And now I'm just going to trace out these teeth. And that's what we're going to cut out. So I'll just go down the line. And the next hurdle to cross is to figure out how to cut out these teeth. What should I use? What tool? Should I just use a hacksaw and do it by hand? Should I use the grinder? I'm not really sure, so let's call Dad. Instead of using a hacksaw or a jigsaw, I decided to get this portable bandsaw over at Harbor Freight, and it's cutting this aluminum like butter. It's much more precise and it's going a lot faster than it would by hand, that's for sure. Well, here's the finished product. And as we used to say up in Massachusetts, that was wicked easy with this portable bandsaw. That was my dad's idea. Great idea. So the next step is to bend this into a circle so it looks like a crown. I just want to show you, I ended up making 3 circles. 1, 2, 3. So these are 3/4 inch, this is 1/2 inch. I didn't have a complete circle to cut out, so I had to make 2 halves. I'll put that in the middle, put this over it. Now we have a 2-inch thick form to bend the aluminum around. And here's the aluminum. So you can see the top of the tooth just reaches the top of the wood. So now I'm going to screw this all together, and then I'm thinking I'll heat this up and bend it around this wooden form. So here I have the jig all set up, and what I'm thinking is that I'm gonna heat up this aluminum, and I'll stick one end in between this block and the circle, and once this is heated up, I'm just gonna bend it. Just gonna bend it, get it in between here, in between here and here. I'll use a hammer and some gloves. It's hot. Look at that. Nice. All right, this part seems somewhat okay. I mean, we have the basic shape. It just needs to be a little bit fine-tuned. There's a gap here, some gaps here. So, and I've got about 1 inch between the ends here. So there's a little bit of adjustment that we have to make. But I'll just let this cool so we have the basic circular shape here. Sorry about the noise, there's a construction project down the road, but I got the crown in a round circle. I got 1 3/4 inch round here, and I just drilled holes every other tooth and screwed in a screw. And then just went around and got it all into a nice tight circle. I used the hammer to bang it where it was out a little bit. But the problem is right here, I've got a 1/2 inch gap. So now I'm thinking that I need to take the router and take off a little bit around the edges to make this circle a little bit smaller. It's hard to predict how close it's going to be without actually screwing it, but this wood is plywood, and I'm hesitant to screw into it too many times, especially if the hole is going to be close to the one next to it. So I want to get this the first time. It looks like I probably need to go a bit more. I think we've got it. Look at this. Get that in there. Pretty close. I mean, once I tighten it all the way around, I think we're gonna be right there. I can touch it. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make this a little bit lighter by cutting out some sections in here and leave a border around the edge to screw the aluminum onto. I'm just making the holes big enough to get the jigsaw blade into. That's Thompson's water seal for decks. It's a solid color. It works pretty well. I'm gonna put 2 coats on it. The wheel is stained and ready, and now I'll put this crown thing on. I'm going to screw this far end first and then work my way around towards the opening. And I have a few extra holes here towards the end, just so it will be a little more secure, hopefully. It's screwed in all the way around, except for these last 3. I suppose I could do this one, but then I'm going to have to soften this aluminum, I think, to bend it and maybe use a metal vise to hold it in place. Unfortunately, it's not exactly clampable right there. Pretty tight. It's a bit too long now. Look at that. All right. It actually worked out pretty well. It does overlap by about 1/16 of an inch. I could cut it. I'd really like to get it so it's not overlapped like that. But before I do that, I'm just gonna put these screws in because they're in the right positions. Burning the wood. Be careful here. So, don't try brazing when it's on the wood. All right, next I'm gonna make something, I probably should look up what it's called technically, but I can't remember at the moment. This is going to catch and release the peaks of the crown. And I want it to be something that's not going to make a really loud tick-tock sound, like metal on metal. So I'm going to try using some of this PVC. I want to cut a slit in it and then heat it up and flatten it. This time I'll just use the heat gun. All right, that's getting there. Probably need something to flatten it. That straightened out pretty well. I'm afraid if I heat this up, then this part will resort back to its natural position. But we'll see. So it's a little concave, as you can see. I'm thinking I'll heat it a little bit more and then clamp it down on here. Now that the most difficult part is complete, I'm trying to figure out how to build the structure for the escapement. So rather than flying by the seat of my pants, I decided to try and diagram to get a basic idea of what I think it should look like. And then I can see what parts I might need if I don't have them already. What type of connector I need to use for each joint. And the B stands for bearings. I have a bearing here, a bearing here, and you can't see it, but there's a bearing on this pipe and on this pipe. It's behind the crown wheel. It's a beautiful day today to work on the structure of the crown wheel escapement. So I've got this 3/4 inch EMT. These are 10-foot lengths and they're about $10 each. So I'm just going to take my plans and do some cutting today. I'm still waiting for the connectors to arrive. Got the bearings, but the connectors should come today. So let's get started. First, I'm going to cut the verticals, and there are 6 of them, and they're each 5 feet high, 5 feet tall. So I can get 2 out of each one of these 10-foot pieces. So I'm just going to mark the halfway point on this EMT. Then I'll take this pipe cutting tool. Whoa, don't want to break that glass. I'll just turn this knob a little bit tighter after every rotation. So next I'll cut some of the horizontals, and a lot of them are 3 feet. So I have some leftover stock from the last project, and I'll just mark the 3-foot mark. The plans I came up with for this project kind of just made a lot of guesses. Maybe a little bit of experience went into those guesses, because I'm only making it 5 feet tall, and also the crown wheel will be on one of these EMT pipes, And I figured 3 feet would be good because that gives it a little bit more stability. So I might have to make some adjustments, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. That's what a project like this is all about. It's trial and error and learning from your mistakes and hopefully making small improvements along the way. Remember this piece of PVC which I flattened? Well, it came out really flat, and I want to cut it in half, square it up, cut it in half, and then somehow I'm going to attach the 2 halves to a piece of EMT. It's going to be longer than this, but to give you an idea, I'm not really sure how to attach this. I'm thinking maybe cutting a slit, but that'll be a little bit difficult, and then to line it up with the other side especially. So I've got a little dilemma there. So I'll have one here and then another one at a 90-degree angle here, which will line up with the crown wheel. I'll show you later. It's hard to picture it. Just got notified that the package was delivered, and the guy is still here. These must be the connectors. This place that makes these connectors, they're amazing. They're called Maker Pipe. So they went out on Monday and they arrived today on Tuesday. That's amazing. They're so responsive. Of course, I only live like less than an hour away from them, so that helped too. But if you're ever looking for connectors, look up Maker Pipe, makerpipe.com. And these connectors are going to come in very handy. I mean, I could be bending pipe and flattening it and screwing in screws. I mean, there is a way to do it without buying this stuff, but this makes it easier, and then I can reuse the pieces later on another project. So there's a 90-degree connector, and they attach with these bolts that come with it. So we should be all set. I also have some extra parts from the last project that I'm going to use, the T connectors. Whenever I cut a piece of EMT, I always like to smooth out the end of it so I don't cut my finger on it. So I have this reamer. You can buy it at the big box store. It just goes in your drill, and it comes in 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch sizes. And you just stick that on there, and this way you're not apt to cut your finger, so that's very helpful. I'm starting to put it all together now with these 90-degree angles that just came in the mail today. Get these tightened down. I put one Rotisserie rod in the corner there, but I haven't put any in any of these other uprights because I want to make sure I get it spaced right instead of making multiple holes in my yard. Just use a metric Allen wrench, tighten them up. Now up here I'm planning to use this T connector, but now that I think about it, I might have to trim this a little bit more. This one has a quick release, so I don't have to use the Allen wrench, which is nice. I'm definitely going to have to trim this pipe down because it's sitting way up above the corner. The frame is basically done now. So my next step is to put these 1-inch pillow block bearings in place. The crown wheel will go here. So one will be here, and the other one will be in the middle of that bar down there. So these are the pillow blocks, and they're about $15, I think, for 2 of them. They're actually on my Amazon store, so there's a link in the description. These are 1-inch pillow block bearings, and I'll have to get some screws. What I'm gonna do here is stick this in the vise and not totally flatten it because I don't want to weaken it too much, but I'm gonna make it somewhat square so that I can bolt these on here rather than going up above. I think I'll let gravity work with me and mount it down below. for the Verge, the rod with the little tabs on it, that's going to go over here. So one here and then one up here. It's going to tend to want to fall down, so we're going to have to make sure that this pipe is really tight. Shouldn't be a problem, but I'm also going to put the piece in the vise and square it off a bit. I have a 9-inch distance between these two poles. Remember that burn spot on the crown wheel? Well, I scraped it out and filled it with some spackling, and I'm getting ready to sand it. I'm not sure if it's going to take the stain very well, but we're going to give it a shot. I have the EMT in the vise now. I marked the halfway mark on the vise, which is 2 inches. Lined that up with that line. But notice that this pillow block bearing is wider than 2 inches. It looks like it's 3 inches. So I might have to do this 2 times so that it will lay flat on the pipe. These pipes have a line on them, so I should have actually marked that on the line instead of randomly somewhere. When I'm pressing this in, I want this line to be facing up. Don't want to go too far in, just enough to create a flat surface. Not having this clamped down was super hokey, so now I've got it on this sawhorse with these metal clamps, and hopefully it will work a lot better. And I can squeeze it here. Well, the handle on my other vise broke, so I went out and got this heavy-duty vise. And what I like about this is that it's not on here with just a pin. This is really, I think, what I need to compress these pipes. Now it's time to attach these pillow block bearings to the 3/4 inch, 3-foot EMT pipes. And I do that just with screws and washers and nuts. In fact, it didn't cost a whole lot. Just a package of these was less than $6. It says round combo with nuts, 1/4-20 by 1.5 inches. This is called a threaded pipe insert, and it goes on the end of the EMT. So I just stick it on there and bang it with the hammer, basically. So the middle has threads in it, so this screw will screw in. I'm gonna stick this screw up through the crown wheel, so it'll be sticking up like that, and then the end of the pipe will be here. That's not all I'm gonna attach the wheel with to the pipe. I also have another piece that I'll show you, but this will give it just a little bit of added stability, I think. So this part gets inserted into the EMT pipe. I have on top of the threaded pipe insert a 1/2-inch piece of EMT that I cut. It's about, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch wide. So actually the crown wheel goes on like this with the teeth pointing away from the rod. And then the screw goes through the center hole that I made into the threaded insert. I had to find a screw that was a little bit longer to get through the wood here. And we want that to go right into the threads. So I flipped the crown wheel over so the pipe is sticking up. And this is called the flange connector, which I found on makeapipe.com as well. I'm just going to pre-drill some holes and screw this down. I'm going to take my punch, sit that in the middle of the hole. That way the drill bit won't wobble around. Because of this pipe and the width of the drill, I can't really get it perpendicular. So I'm going to have to take this off and then drill the holes. All right, this is coming along pretty well. Let's see how this fits. Wow, look at that. It's got ice dripping off it. So one toggle will go here and the other one down here at opposite ends of the pole that will be vertical here. I was thinking that the real difficult part of this project was making that wheel, but as I get closer to completion, now I'm thinking that the most difficult part might be the Verge, I think it's called, with the toggles. How am I going to attach those toggles to the 3/4 inch EMT? You see what I mean? How will these plastic tabs attach to this pipe? One idea that I had was to cut slits in this and stick it through the 2 slits and put a screw. But the question is how to do that. Will I be able to make a straight slit through there that's not too wide, that's straight? The line is here and it wanted to slide off because it's rounded. Want to slide off of that. This is the jig I came up with. I have a plywood base. I've got the little vise in there with the broken handle clamped onto the plywood. And then I have some scrap 2x4 pieces. I've got 3 of them, 1, 2, and 1 on this side. And then I have this particle board that I had in my scrap pile. I screwed that onto the 2x4 blocks. These are screwed into the plywood base. And then I used the angle grinder to cut a slit. I just did that freehand and got it so that on the other side the width is just slightly longer than the width of this. So my hope is that it'll cut into the pipe. Now this slit is a little bit too narrow for this, so once I get it into the pipe I'll try and widen it just a little bit so I can fit this in. Now if I look through there with my flashlight, I can see that the opening is there. I think that'll work. I just tap that in. Yeah. So So here's the finished slit. That worked out pretty well with the jig. And then I cut a hole, or I drilled a hole through this PVC, and the same size hole through the conduit. Everything is roughly in place now. The toggles are on. The crown wheel is on. The only thing I have to do is level everything up because the wheel is kind of at an angle. I almost forgot there's one more thing I have to do, and I might have to get a longer section of pipe, but I'm going to use this T-connector from Maker Pipe, put that on the top, and stick this through. There. So this is going to, what's the word? Is oscillate the word? Oscillate back and forth. If you've been with my channel for a while, then you probably remember the tripod that I have. I used it in the Galileo clock escapement. And I set it up because I don't have a tree to suspend a bucket from. Oh, that's way off. Tighten one a little bit and then the other one a little bit. I created another pallet, gave it plenty of room, made it a bit wider, turned the screw around so it's facing away from the crown wheel. So the rope winds around this axle, and instead of winding it up like this, which with the weight in the bucket, it's a little bit difficult, I want to put a handle over here. Oh yeah, that's a lot easier. So let's fire this baby up. I'm going to start by putting this gallon of water inside that bucket, and I have another juice container of water if needed, but we'll start with this and see how it goes. So as the crown wheel spins counterclockwise, it catches here on a tooth, goes forward, and down here on this other pallet, it catches the next tooth. Notice that the teeth, this part of the tooth of each tooth changes direction. So this way, it catches the tooth on this side, and down here it catches the tooth on the opposite side. So that's creating some momentum on this verge. And the shorter the T up on top, the faster it will move. And it's going much faster. Now, on some of the original diagrams I've seen, they actually hung something on each end that had some variable weight. So I can fine-tune this. If I find that it's going too fast, I could add a little bit more weight to the ends, and that should slow it down. Or if there wasn't enough kinetic energy to spin the rotisserie, I can take those weights off and it could go as fast as this potentially. I was originally thinking of using some of this aluminum as the tabs, but I'm kind of pleased with how quiet this is. I know at night in a campground it's not that quiet, but during the day I think it would be okay. So what we can do to add some weight to the ends of the T is take 2 pieces of EMT conduit and take some of these 1-ounce fishing weights, sinkers. I'll put an end cap on one of the ends here, and then just insert these sinkers. They fit perfectly right into the pipe, and I can adjust the weight by how many ounces I want. So if I need a little bit more weight to slow it down more, I can add a few ounces. If I want to speed it up, I could take a few ounces out. So that's really fine tuning. So this is what I came up with. We have the end piece here. I drilled 2 holes and put a piece of wire. So imagine this is the T connector on the top of the escapement. I could just place this here, and maybe I can somehow keep that in a fixed location. Think about that later. I'm liking what I see. I could speed it up a little bit if I took a few ounces out of each of those. I think I'm gonna go, this is gonna be my go-to method. I can see that these are heading towards the edge here, so I'm just gonna have to do something to keep them in place. I'm just marking 1 inch from the end. I'm doing the same on both sides, and then every 2 inches. I think we'll start with that. I think that'll give me enough flexibility. Over here on the vise, I'm just cutting some notches in the pipe so it'll fit on there without sliding. Let's try putting these on the ends. See what happens. Get them in the notches. That slows it down significantly. Now let's say I wanted to go a little bit faster. Let's move these weights a little bit further towards the center. Maybe almost all the way. And you can see it's going faster now. So I'll just rewind it now and let it run, give you some time to soak it in. Now let's keep in mind that in between the axle and the pulley, the rope will be going through the rotisserie spit and causing it to spin. So that's why I'm hoping that the little sinkers in the weights on the ends, I can adjust them. I could take some out, I can add some additional ones to make those a little heavier or a little lighter, depending on how much force is needed to rotate that chicken.